Hello, everybody, and welcome to One World, One Blood Bowl number 75. Do prizes ruin Blood Bowl? It's a fair question. It's one that has been talked about a lot in the community in the last couple of weeks. There's been some quite ranty videos put out and some other stuff going on, so I thought it was time One World, One Blood Bowl absolutely solved it just by getting four of us together to chat for a bit, and I'm certain we can just nail it all and solve all of those problems. So I'm delighted that we've got not only one of the people at the, I don't want to say the root cause and problem of all of this, or indeed the instigator, but someone maybe at the centre of the story of why you may have heard this subject being raised lately. The lovely Sol is joining us again. Hello, Sol.
Hey, hello, PCs. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate a chance to say my piece and also set things up with it.
Yeah, so I think that's a reasonable place and will be where we're starting. But I think we then want to talk more broadly about the prizes that we're currently giving in Blood Bowl. Why we give them, what we're giving them out for, is that a good intention, and is it having that impact on the game of Blood Bowl? Because that's a sort of side topic that's been raised alongside it. So to illuminate that and to give us some perspective from the people that take those decisions, I've invited along the lovely Jock and the lovely stewbacca. Now, I'm pretty certain that the community will have heard of both of these people because they are huge figures in the world of Blood Bowl. Jock is currently running just about everything that happens in the UK to do with Blood Bowl. The guru and, of course, the Svengali behind Team Scotland's rise to being positively mediocre, which is a huge step upwards. Also running the UKTC now, and, of course, has been running his own brand, the Home Nations, for a few years. So welcome, Jock. Hello, nice to have you on.
Evening, PC. It's becoming a bit like Billy Connolly and Parky. This is my third appearance.
Well,
I guess we...
You're a popular man, and as I said, at the centre of a lot of Blood Bowl right now. So a man with interesting opinions, and one who I enjoy hearing from. And then also we've been joined by the lovely stewbacca. Good evening, Stew. How are you?
I'm not too bad, Mr. Chest. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. Enjoying Father's Day and enjoying this heat. But yeah, also really glad to have got One World, One Blood Bowl back on its feet. For a few months, I really wasn't feeling like talking about Blood Bowl much. And now I am again. So I guess that's positive. We all have our times when perhaps Blood Bowl isn't as central to how we live as it is at other times. And I think I went through one of those. Stewbacca is, of course, the NAF representative for the southeast of England.
Yep, that's right.
And also the TO for the Kent Team Championship or Team Challenge, one of those two. It has a C at the end.
Team Championship, yeah. I did offer it to Jock, but he didn't want it.
That sounds... I can't believe that's true.
I had to negotiate the M25, so it was definitely out at that point.
Jock offered a larger stake in his empire of tournaments and said no. But if you haven't heard of the Kent Team Championship, it's absolutely lovely. It runs out in Kent, of course, the Garden of England. Attracts a pretty large field, a very diverse field.
Yeah, I had 120 last couple of years, and it might. So that's 30 teams, and we've got capacity for 36, and it's looking like we might get there. Yeah, played in a lovely Canterbury cricket ground.
Yeah,
with a lovely open view, lots of light coming in, which is very rare for Blood Bowl tournaments as well.
It is. I've been twice. I think it's run maybe 3 times. It might have run once as a sort of test format before I came. But I've been a couple of times. Really enjoy the venue. Really enjoy just being down there. And as you say, light and space and air around you. It's a grand weekend out, and I would heartily recommend it. So these are 2 tournament organisers that make team packs, and the specific event which has sparked all of this was a team event. But they also run other tournaments and are just experienced tournament organisers, and having that view will hopefully be useful to us. But yes, we start, and I suppose we should go back instantly to Sol. Normally at this point I talk about everyone's Blood Bowl. So Sol, how's your Blood Bowl right now?
Terrible. I'm awful at this game. My Blood Bowl. It's been exciting. I too, by the way, go through phases of hibernation. Fun fact, which is what I refer to it as usually sometime around Chaos Cup, Euro Bowl. After that, I like to just walk away from the game for like 2 to 3 months and get it out of my system. You know.
Yeah.
Stressful. It's type 2 fun. So when you sit down and you're engaged with it constantly, you appreciate it in the hindsight. But in the moment, you know, it feels like being chased by a lion. A little bit, just a touch. My Blood Bowl's been fine. I was really proud of my team's performance a couple weekends back over at Amorical. We got second out of 76, I believe. I might be slightly off on that number, but it was an incredible performance by my squad, and I
Your squad did include
elated.
a ringer from England, didn't it?
Oh no, I mean, he's honorary Florida. Honestly, he had the jersey and everything.
I'm
Who's
not
to
sure.
say?
I'm not sure the word Florida and honorary go together particularly well, but I do get your point.
Dishonorary?
Yeah,
Either
relegated to
way.
Floridian. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe.
No, come on. Infamous Floridian K4. Everybody knows him. Okay?
Good there for tax purposes.
Yeah, basically born in the cock of America. It's fine. Everybody loves that guy.
And the two of you
But
didn't manage to win, but you did come second.
yeah, yeah. And we did come second, and that was delightful.
I
I
mean,
was really proud of us.
that's a great result in a team event, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what's the
And then
problem?
I suppose, yeah. Well, the general gist of it was that the team came second, and I came first in individual. Woo! I got first out of 304 coaches, and I was elated. Look, I'll be the first person to acknowledge I recognize that the higher accolade inside of a team tournament is the team trophies. I gather and I recognize it. But to me, this was still an accomplishment on like a top five par of something I'd done inside of my Blood Bowl, big quotation marks, career. I was elated by this. It meant a lot to me. And so I'm sitting there as they're calling out the awards, and for my perspective, they call someone else's name and they hand them the trophy, and I'm like, oh my god, I was I must have been mistaken. I don't know, and my ears start ringing a bit. I look back over the scores. I'm like trying to see like, well, where was I wrong?
Because this has happened
what
to
was
me
off?
in many events where they've called out people's names that aren't mine, and I'm always surprised. But then when I look back at
Yeah,
the records, it turns out they've done better than me.
yeah, that's the thing. So my first assumption is I'm mistaken. And then I look back over the records, and no, I'm there. It's me. I've got him in tiebreakers. I've got him in oppositional score, touchdowns, most CAS, best defense, every metric that you can envision.
But you were on
Um,
exactly the same score. You were 5-1-0 both of you, weren't you?
yes, but we
Right.
but we had yes. So all we had was the same tiebreakers that made my squad second, that made me first in individual, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those like you can say it's just tiebreakers. We're just they don't matter. But then, why are we second in squads? We should be. And in the same light, first for individual, that's how it works. That's the point of tiebreakers. They break ties.
Yeah.
Um, so I realized no, this isn't correct, and so my ears started ringing. I became distraught, and like, look, I'm just gonna preface this immediately and say it is so humiliating and embarrassing to admit how much I care about this game, and it is, I already know, frowned upon to care to this degree about pretend rat football dollies, right? Like I know that, I know that, but it matters to me. This game matters to me. I care deeply about Blood Bowl.
And I mean, even
And
aside of that, presumably you'd given up not only time but some money to travel that distance, play in that event. There's a investment in going to these things.
Yeah, I mean, well, so it hits me harder than most people, I think. It's not a particularly large community secret that I have a chronic condition called poverty,
Yeah.
and
I think we'd all
I
assumed
take
living in
no.
Florida, you probably did, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, true, and I mean, that's a good point. Thank you, PC. I hadn't even considered that perspective. Anyways, so I dropped about like a 15th of my annual salary to attend this tournament a year in advance, and coordinated all of this with our team. And this is a big chunk of my like free money and time.
Yeah.
You take a week off work, you do this, you do that to get out there. Half week off work, uh, and it's expensive. So you dedicate time and finance for the opportunity to show up and perform. So when you do, yay. If I genuinely underperformed, well, what are you going to do? It's a dice game, and that happens, and that's what you sign up for. You sign up
Yeah.
for those risks. Um, but that wasn't exactly what had happened, I guess, and so I'm distraught. Basically, I'm a little. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm terrible at masking, and I know that I can't hide uh, the state of what's going on my face. I'm
Yeah.
just not going to be able to mask that. And so I walked away to the men's room, splashed a little bit of water on my face, and try to like think about what's going on, make reason, make do, make understand what's happened.
And to feel your feelings
And
without doing that on a stage with 300 people looking at you.
that was the biggest part. Was so my goal was to collect myself, because I, one, was of a split mind of like, well, if I even make it up onto that stage, one, sure, selfish, but self-humiliation is a factor. You know, the appearance of weakness is in its own right in front of a large crowd, hard to just ignore. And then two, am I going to make it worse for my team by presenting myself as like this bad sport with like this just like distraught element on my face about second place? I mean, anyone should be elated. Second
Yeah.
place is amazing, you know.
Yeah.
And the answer was, in the time it took me to process those feelings and recognize what was going on, I missed the call. I genuinely didn't hear it. I I did not hear it. I missed standing up there with my team. And at the end of the day, that's still selfish, and that's still something that I screwed up, and something that I have to not only live with, but also make right by the people that signed up to this tournament with me, and to the TO as well, because I wasn't. I guess the main thing I want people to know: it was never my goal to snub anyone. It was never my goal to spite anyone. It was a moment of weakness, and I was embarrassed, and I just didn't process things quickly enough to make it up there, and I wish I had.
Sure.
And I regret how I let my team down. I just want people to maybe understand, because there have been some passing stories about like all of the negative things I meant and what I was trying to do with it. I just want people to understand I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I was just hurting.
Yeah,
And,
I think a lot of the time we
yeah.
do take a leap as humans, all too often, to expect the worst out of people or to ascribe to them negative motives. And we don't think, is this just someone who actually is having an issue themselves they're coping with? We don't come to a lot of the world with love. And maybe we should do that more often.
Look, man, my skin's in the game, and and that's a double-sided coin sometimes. But also, I understand why people would come to those conclusions, and I
Sure.
get what it looked like, right? And I recognize that. But I just wanted to say that no, that wasn't the intent.
Okay.
And in the long run, to wind down from that situation, or to discuss like the way that things resolved, because it's kind of how we got into the discussion work of trickle down, share the wealth, right? So a very infamous individual, Artemis Black, love that guy to death, but I also recognize has a distinct lack of tact. Raised a stink on the Facebook group regarding the individual situation, and it brought forward a large array of discussion.
Yeah. One of the
And
things he
so,
said was
and
that it
so
ruined the Emoracle. I think he meant for him.
I think he meant for him.
And as someone
I
who wasn't
disagree
there
that
and
it
didn't have a
ruined.
ticket, I'm not sure why that should be something people are that worried
I
about, but he's entitled to his view.
I will I will clarify on that one a little bit, because I know he meant it ruined the event for him as he was broadcasting it to others and his community and his following.
I see.
He was closely following the event. His goal was to present this and have a big like stream surrounding the ongoing events in real time, and it's a fairly difficult thing already to stream a
Yeah.
tournament with no cameras.
Yeah, yeah.
And then for the results then to basically not accurately reflect the awards placements, that's what I believe ruined it for him, and specifically in the way in which he was presenting it to his community. Now, my initial read on that as well was it ruined all of Immortal, which is, I think, one, he wasn't saying that, but two, it, and I don't think that myself, and I'm possibly one of the people that had some of the most problematic experience, right?
Sure.
And I still think Immortal stands intact. It was executed efficiently. The tournament organizer was working through a lot of outside circumstances and fought hard to bring this to the community. We did a hell of a lot of good at that tournament in regards to like raising money for charities, children in need. I think that the tournament went off time efficient. I think that things were largely very well executed, and it's hard to. I mean, this is the largest tournament in North American history,
Yeah.
right?
And fantastic
So,
to see a big team event with that kind of following in
yeah.
North America.
No, I even I wouldn't go as far as to say the tournament was ruined. I had a problematic spot inside of that tournament. But as a whole, the tournament was a fantastic experience and will go down as one of the greatest events in the history of North American Blood Bowl.
Good.
Yeah.
Now,
I think that's fair and reflective.
surely it's only fair. I mean, I said to you at the time, because I'm not two-faced, and I said to you at the time, I think you've done an amazing thing. To win best individual at a team event isn't easy. The easiest way to do it is to turn up with a team where you're perhaps notably stronger than the other three, either accidentally or I have known that done deliberately. And to sit on board one where you should still end up with a reasonable strength of schedule, even if your team isn't doing very well, and hence maybe have slightly easier games. You got to where you got to by, in a competitive team, fighting on the number one board throughout the event against other very competitive teams. So I thought, in terms of your personal achievement in getting the result you got, I thought that was amazing. I think you are an incredible Blood Bowl player. But I was quite happy with the idea that you should get the team award and not the individual award, because at the time, I'd been told when I said that to you, that the official rules had share the wealth, which meant that if you won one of the team awards, that counted for precedence and you shouldn't get an individual award. However, I think this is now an appropriate time to cut to... I've had many messages on this topic, both on Facebook and on Reddit, but also on some of the Discords. I did put this one out on some of the Discord communities I knew had been talking about it, just to get perhaps a wider opinion pool than I often get, and we will get to some of those in a minute. But interestingly, I had a private Discord message from one of the organisers, who is Sean H, and he doesn't mind me naming him and quoting that he said this. I believe he is the individual behind the Blood Bowl tournament manager, so a fantastic contributor to the community and part of organising the Oracle, not the specific tournament organiser. His statement was, "Hey, I saw you're about to cover the topic of the Oracle Cup Top Individual Award on the One World, One Blood Bowl podcast. I know a lot has been said about this, but I'm a member of the Oracle Cup committee, not running the specific event himself, though. I just wanted to say that the way Share the Wealth was implemented at the Oracle Cup was 100% incorrect and was a mistake by the organiser, who I think has also put out a statement on Facebook to the same effect. For reference, 2 Oracles ago, Stimmy won top squad and top individual, and he was given both awards. At the last Oracle Cup, I was top squad and top tier B team. The mistake made by the organising team does not reflect the way the Oracle Cup expects tournaments to be, and the team has done everything they can to rectify the issue and misunderstanding. Mistakes happen, and unfortunately this one is being highlighted across the board, but the discussions are misinformed because they're suggesting whether Share the Wealth is a good thing or not, but in this case the policy was incorrectly applied, accidentally. For squad events, we've always had it where squad awards and individual awards had their own separate Share the Wealth. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure that this point was made. It's a very important point, I think. Thanks for all you do for the community. You're an incredibly good-looking man and vital to everything that has ever happened in Blood Bowl. And he definitely said all of that. I haven't added the last sentence at all. Okay, so we've got 2 other tournament organisers here. Before we cut back to Sol with his response both to all of that and perhaps any more of this story and how he feels. How do you feel about that, guys? How do you feel about what Sol said? Let's start with stewbacca. What do you think?
So I wanted to pick up on the message you read from Sean, actually, because we're about how the TO has made a mistake and tried to rectify that, because we've actually done that ourselves before. We've done it twice, which isn't a great record, but the first time was the first NAF event where I had been absolutely panicking about getting an odd number of teams and what we would do with it. So I took Mike Davis' X score, I bastardized it and broke it very slightly. It was 99% working, except that we gave the award to not quite the correct team. So there were 2 teams that went 4-0-0. We gave it to one of them. The other was actually higher on strength of schedule, which was the first tiebreaker. But because there was one cell formula wrong, we gave it to the other team. So yeah, I'm aware of mistakes can happen. We rectified that by giving the other tip. Well, we crowned both teams as winners like a couple of days later, and we gave the team that didn't get the prize tickets to the next event. And then this year just gone, we had one result corrected after the award ceremony, which switched strengths of schedules, which meant that Miss Peltry, who should have finished second, was noted down as third. And again, we've given her a ticket for next year. So I'm very aware that mistakes can happen.
Yeah.
We're all human beings. We all make mistakes in some form, and it's how you deal with it and process it.
With the possible exception of Purple Goo, I'm still yet to be convinced the man's not a robot.
So from a TA point of view, and where Sol was saying it's the largest event in America. So you mentioned we run 120 people size events. Jock's obviously running one really big. In one much bigger one and another one alongside it, and a Miracle is also bigger than ours. But even at the level that we operate, it's there's a lot of things you're trying to do. Most of the time as a TO, you're actually doing nothing because you have a system now. So we now use BBTM, which obviously you mentioned Sean H 1986, right? Yep. Which is great. So the year went well.
And just sorry, in passing, huge thank you to him both for his input and for BBTM. What a great gift to the community.
And recently he's implemented something that allows functionality if you have an odd number of teams, which is also excellent. So most of the time as a TO, you're actually not doing a lot. There's 2 hours 15 of games going on. Occasionally you have the odd rules query, but then there's a few intense periods. So drawing the next round usually isn't difficult unless you're picking someone for a result. But where you're doing the awards ceremony, I think that's probably the most pressure you're under. And I can see why mistakes happen then, because you're trying to make sure all the results are in, you've got it all ready, you've got it all noted down, ready to give out the awards, so everyone who's driven a long way can get going home as well.
Yeah.
So obviously it's that's the pressure period when mistakes can happen. I don't know if that's exactly what happened in this instance, or whether they just forgot what was in their rules pack. I know Blood Bowl is a really always great at reading rules packs in detail.
If you're the TO, you perhaps ought to have read it in detail, though.
True. Yes, yeah, that's true. So from a TA point of view, I can understand why it's happened. From a player's point of view, I can understand the frustration that Sol had, because obviously we all do care deeply about this game. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here right now talking about it. And like he said, where he was looking to see if he'd made a mistake or whatever. Obviously, you want to know that where you stand, and if you think you've been wronged, in the moment, I can completely understand his reaction as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What I think is quite interesting is that I'm coming with a lot of empathy for Sol, as are you. I'm sure Jock will try and pretend to have some too in a minute. But there didn't seem to be a lot of empathy for everybody else on sort of Facebook and Discord that were discussing this. Now, that might be part of the fact that the person who was very angry about it was the Artemis Black, and he does tend to be a divisive figure. Some people will leap on anything he ever says and say, you are the devil, therefore you must be wrong. But there was
if
a lot
Artemis tried to hand out free ice cream to everyone in the country, dairy would be banned by the morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just saying.
Now, he is the anchovies of Blood Bowl. People either really understand him and can put up with his communication style, or they absolutely won't and won't have any truck with him. I do get that. Personally, I get on with the guy. I think his underlying values are rock solid. I think he's a nice human, despite his, as you put it, lack of tact sometimes.
Yeah.
But it was quite interesting how many people were instantly defending this on, look, it's share the wealth, stop your crying, how dare Sol not just accept that someone else should walk away with that trophy because he's got a better trophy. Now, as we've heard, that actually wasn't the case. There was a mistake in how they handled their own processes here. But it does bring up that bigger question of should we be sharing the wealth, and particularly in team events? And that's why I've got 2 team tournament organisers on to talk about that sort of stuff. But Jock, what's your take on all of this? Let's bring you in before we go back to Sol.
Sure. Well, on the issue of whether Purple Goo is a robot T1000 sent back from the future, he was knocking back 7.8 French beers at the weekend. So
okay,
he's assimilated very well.
Well,
he is a robot.
That's a good strike against them.
In that sense. I mean, it's an interesting one because obviously I'm a TO and I have a similar, well, adjacent tale to tell in some ways with Home Nations, which was my first tournament. But before I kind of get into that, I think the important thing to recognise here is that like Sol's feelings were legitimate, like absolutely no reason why he shouldn't have felt the way that he did and handled it the way he did, which was a human reaction. Like at the end of the day, no one can gainsay someone's reaction in a very personal way. Like that's completely cool. Where I think it's quite interesting, and Sol's touched upon this, I think the thing that's being missed is the bigger picture, which is the Amoracle's massive. It's just gone through its biggest iteration. It's the biggest tournament in North America. It's a huge celebration of North American Blood Bowl. That's the thing that should be focused on. Yeah. And obviously we have this moment of controversy, if you will, and I think stewbacca picks up on it really well. Talk about points of pressure, particularly around the prize giving bit, because as a TO, you're super conscious that people want to get off. So you need to sort of like put it all together, but at the same time as trying to do all that work.
But Sol can't get off unless he gets an individual award.
But what's interesting is as a TO and you're trying to work that out, you have people that don't want to wait for the prize given, so they're coming up to you and going, "Hey, cheerio, bye," and you're like, "I'm trying to concentrate and do some serious work here to make sure I don't get it wrong." So I always think from the TO's point of view, there are not many people that are in the position of being a TO, and certainly not many, even fewer, in the position of being in a TO of a big tournament, and I say big being north of 60 or 70 people, where you've got all the logistics of organising people and stuff like that. So,
hey, Stu, you count as big.
Yeah. So I think it's only reasonable that like mistakes to understand that mistakes happen, and I think the way that the Oracle went about redressing it felt like it was okay to me. I mean, I'm sure Sol will have a say on that, but I can't imagine him sort of saying that it was terrible in terms of what they did. Obviously, I'm always about how you deal with a mistake that you make in that sense. And in my first Home Nations, I made a decision. I had a coach that won Best Rookie and Best Stunty, and I subscribed to the idea of giving out the prizes to different people. And what I didn't do was I didn't check with him what he would prefer, whether he'd prefer Best Stunty or Best Rookie. And I'd made a judgment call that, well, Best Stunty is a bigger award than Best Rookie in that sense. And it caused him a bit of upset. I mean, he got over it fairly quickly, but he did come up to me and say, "Hey, I would have preferred Best Rookie." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I think one of the lessons for TOs is always about communicating and asking coaches when you kind of have these edge cases, because you can plan to the nth degree. And in fact, K-Fog is in chat. Last year's Home Nations looked like it was going to go to a 3-way tie and was really going to bugger up my tie breaks. So I was chatting with him, and actually chatted to him before the tournament to look at how we do tie breaks, because obviously Home Nations follow Eurobowl rules, and the tiebreaker rules that were there in situ at the time were inadequate in my view, in terms of the order of strength. They preferred individual coaches, and in fact that was I can cheekily say how the Barbarians won in the first year, because we followed the Eurobowl tie breaks, and
we won by being the best.
by one tie break. So it's always like, people always have a view of like what should be the tiebreaker and stuff like that, but I think the takeaway for those that are coaches that have never run a tournament before, and certainly not one at scale, is that you need to give the TU a bit of time and a bit of space to do that critical bit at the end before they make a mistake in the announcements, because it will happen. But at the same time, it really isn't the end of the world. Although that said, I completely understand how something like this meant a lot to Sol, and I'd be exactly the same in his shoes. I would have expected to be top individual in that sense, and I can see why Oracle said it's incorrect, because certainly Home Nations, we split the tournament team tournament prize from the individual prize, so that if you're a top individual, in fact, a shout out to you, I think you were the MVP in the bowl, weren't you, or was it Davo?
Davo was. I was second.
Oh, you were second, yeah. Um, so yeah, I think by and large, I think it's a storm in a teacup. Although I'm sure for Saul at the time, it didn't feel
Yeah.
like that, and that
Yeah.
was completely legitimate.
And I think
Well,
that
no,
I think
I
me
think
and Andy
that's
were separated on
yeah. So
tiebreakers that time as well, because that's often how these things are separated. So,
I mean,
so
yeah, of course you're correct on that, right? Like I'm just one guy in a tournament of 304 coaches. Yeah, it's a storm in a teacup. I care about my teacup, but it is a teacup. And there was so much that went right with that tournament, and I think that it's a disservice to all of the hard work
hmm,
that Mr. Cowley put forward into this tournament to make it an exclusivity about the drama of the individual
sure.
award entirely. Um, Obviously, I will argue till my face turns blue that I need to stand up for what I believe was, a correction that needed to take place.
So
Um,
how did that all? How did it all end up? Is it in a better
yeah, it
place
was
now,
uh, it was a
Sol?
big thing. So Artemis raises this stink, and the general responses are like, "Well, it's in the rules pack. It's not. Well, this is just how it works. It never has before. There's no precedent at this tournament history. Uh, you know, well, who cares anyways? I do. Uh,
Hey, and in
you know,
passing, I think particularly after an event that you've travelled distance to, you've spent a lot of money on, you've given up a lot of time for.
yeah.
You've then spent 2 days playing the best Blood Bowl you can possibly play. And I want to say again, Sol, I think what you did that weekend was incredible. The team
Well,
result was
thank you.
great, but you individually, I think, to be board one in a competitive team and still finish top of the individual rankings, as I said to you at the time, award or not, I think that's an incredible achievement you should be proud of.
Sure.
But
I'm proud of everyone on my team that performed that weekend,
yeah,
like flatly.
but I think wherever you are in Blood Bowl, you can empathise that after that level of focus, stress, pressure, and play, there may be an emotional reaction to that not ending up the way you'd been expecting it to, or you felt had been promised within the rules pack.
So these rebuttals, they came out, and these were the arguments largely against, and I didn't really think they had a great leg to stand on. But I was so when I brought it up after the tournament, I basically walked up to Sean and I was like, hey, I wanted to, if you have a moment, I wanted to talk about it, and I brought up the subject and kind of I hadn't gotten too far into it where he was like, look, that's just the way it's going to be right now. That's just the way it is. And I said, well, you know what? All right, I'm not going to, I'm not, Sean has bigger things going on
Sure.
right now than just me. And I acknowledged that and I walked away. That would have been the end of the discussion if he had not contacted me later that evening. And he basically said, like, listen, I would like to talk about the way that things went down and to better understand the viewpoint that you were putting forward. And it was never my goal to be dismissive. And I said once again, like, look, I understand. It's not just about me. What he is going through outside and inside of the tournament is larger and more difficult. We sat down for coffee. I explained though that basically that bullet list of points, which was like it's not in the rules pack. That's not how Share the Wealth historically has operated in this tournament or any that I've personally partaken in. I'm not saying it doesn't exist out there. Of course, I'm sure it does. Uh, and then I followed through with like that conversation. He said, "Well, let me talk to Midnight Ogre, who was the gentleman who got second place. So let me talk to Midnight Ogre and the rules committee, defer to them, and I can't promise anything, but we will get back to you and see if there's any action that we can take in this response." And I said, look, if you can't do right by me, uh, fair enough, man. I'm just one guy, and that's okay. We're still friends. I still appreciate everything you did, and it doesn't take away from this amazing tournament weekend that you ran. Um, he gets a hold of me 2 days later, and he says, "So we're not just gonna, you know, rip the trophy out of the guy's hands and take it all back." And I said, "Yeah, I didn't necessarily expect that. That wasn't really on my agenda. Uh, it's it's just hardware, man. Like, trophy is a physical, materialistic thing. The only thing I cared about." And he said, "Yeah, we know it's accreditation, and we are happy to accredit that to your NAF profile." I said, "Good. It's everything I could ask for. It's all I care about."
What?
Just quietly up in the corner, PC. No, nothing. So he said, we can do a joint accreditation. We're going to put the individual champion on your NAF profile. And I said, good enough for me, man. Like that's all I can ask for. I don't really feel entitled to more than that. Mistakes were made. It was all whatever. But that means a lot to me. That was a big gesture. And I also agree that they did what they could to make things right.
Is that more important that on the NAF records we get things? So no matter who we give the prizes to, that on the NAF it should reflect what actually happened. What do the TOs? What do the TOs think of that? Let me just bring them in. Then we'll come back to
transition into the broader discussion of share the wealth.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's what it was. I mean, let's talk about it. At the meat of it, there was a video in which Artemis extended this discussion into a much more hardline notion of share the wealth at all, right? So the idea of, oh, I got first place individual and most touchdown. I'm not saying I did. I'm just saying if I had, then we wouldn't pass most touchdowns to the next coach. Oh, he doesn't get a trophy. Too bad. Suck it up, Buttercup. That was something of the line or something of the take. It is interesting that there is historical precedent under share the wealth as a community thing. I don't sit on that hard line. I've never particularly had any issue whatsoever of like handing off best defense or handing off most touchdowns. I think, interestingly, there is a merit of points to be had about accreditation that is false in terms of like saying that somebody did something that they didn't do. But perhaps handing out hardware is still a reasonable compromise. That said,
I mean, Chris Lebee's just said in the chat that who wants a trophy they didn't win. And some people were much more aggressive than that, saying if I was given a trophy but knew I came second, I would throw it in the bin, or I'd be too ashamed to pick it up.
I wouldn't throw it in the bin. If somebody gave me this is personally for me. I don't care. This is not a judgment on anyone else. If I knew that I didn't come in second because I came in like fourth, I would give the trophy to second. That's what I would have done. That said, I think it's okay to take a little bit of happiness out of the event and to pull this trophy to get some kind of recognition. Like for me, best touchdown, most defense. These trophies, most Cas come with. Well, we'll get into those later, I'm sure. Those though, they come with the caveat of an asterisk, which is that isn't in top placement, right? And that's somewhat universally understood within the community. Like, within the community that plays tabletop specifically, that caveat is already assumed, I think, almost universally. Like, we all kind of know that if you got most touchdowns, there's a chance that first place might have gotten more touchdowns than you. Right?
Yeah.
Is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know. It's not really... it's not really the highest thing on my agenda to squash specifically. I think that I like making more people happy at tournaments more than I care about the distinct correctness of those labels. But I will say that I get the point, and it's not without merit, right? Most competitions, organizations would look at that rule sideways and be confused as to why we would hand out a trophy that just doesn't, that does, by all tactless statement, have a lie written on it, right?
Do 40-year-old men need participation trophies? Yes. It's a view we've heard expressed.
I was going to say, my generation gets shit on for participation trophies, but we're not the ones that invented them. I'm just telling you.
I stand on both sides of this, and I want to go to the TOs on it in a minute. I think there's a unique wrinkle here where, of course, we have a team event and then individual standings. Now, to some degree, to me, in a team event, I don't care what the individual standings are. That's not the reason I'm going. I'm going as a team. I win or I lose as a team, and that's the bit I consider important in a team event, even a pairs event. But if we're going to have individual standings, then we're going to give out an award for whoever's top, and people are going to start to care about it. Anytime you have a list of numbers, the nerds in Blood Bowl are going to care about what those numbers say and who ends up where they are in those numbers. I have a slightly historical perspective on this, and I guess one of the reasons stewbacca's here is so I don't sound like a liar. The trophy I just showed off, because I do keep them, I haven't binned them all. The two nicest ones I have that my partner actually likes are these two. Now, this was from when the team, I was very lucky, carried me to the win at the Kent Team Championships. The first time it was big. So the second year it ran. I think the first year was kind of a test event, mainly because I wasn't there. But at the same event, I was also given this little fella. Now, they're both lovely, and I'm very proud to have them in my trophy collection to some degree. But the second one was for most touchdowns as an individual. And at the time, I sort of felt that I was taking away someone else's chance to walk away from that event with a prize. And because particularly as I had the nice prize, and I guess coming first rather than second makes that easier for me to say, but I can honestly say, hand on heart, I said to the organisers at the time, and in a follow-up message, because I was also talking about the rule pack and trying to give some feedback as an experienced player, I said that I really didn't feel I needed both of those awards, and I would have been really happy to cheer someone else, even if they had less touchdowns than me, picking up the most touchdowns award, because it meant someone else would have gone home with something to show their family, why they'd been away for the week, all that money they'd spent. And it makes more people happy, and to me, more happy is more good. I don't want to think of it negatively like a participation award. I just like to think the more people that go to an event and leave happy, that's a good event. So on that basis, I recommended to the Kent team that despite it being, and a lot of team events do say that you can win an individual and a team thing, and as the Oracle has clarified, that they don't consider that to be a share the wealth clash, that I'm quite happy that if you're in the placings for the team, I don't want to be considered for any of the individual awards. I've won the big thing for that event, which is one of those team prizes. Mr. Stewbacca, firstly, tell the world I'm not lying, because few people are going to believe that I was turning down an award or saying I shouldn't have won one. And secondly, what's been the team's response to that? Because at the time, some people said, look, individual isn't the team. Of course, you should be able to win an individual as well as a team.
So you did say that at the time, and we have taken that on board. And the 2027 rule set has a caveat within it that you can't win individual award and the team award, except for best painted, because it's a different type of award, and best junior because they're kids, they like stuff. So yeah,
because grown-ups don't.
For next year. Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things I was thinking about over the last couple of days since you asked me to come on was, the four of us have been relatively successful at Blood Bowl, and awards probably mean a different thing to us than to someone who hasn't won anything yet.
Exactly.
So, winning your first trophy is much more exciting than winning your 10th or your 20th or whatever. So there's one thing there that actually share the wealth, handing it down, makes that nicer. And also by the same token, that if we've won lots of stuff, we've also got a lot of Blood Bowl stuff, both from purchasing it and winning it. And, we probably don't need much more. I've won Charlie Victor Ball tokens. I've already had one. I gave it to someone else, for example, and things like that. I mean, there's been some prizes that I've absolutely loved and are great, and they're generally like 3D printed teams, because I've only had the Games Workshop ones. I've not had them. It gives me an excuse. I quite like painting now, which I hated when I first started playing.
Right.
It gives me an excuse to try and paint it up and theme it to the tournament that I won it from. So that's when I play it, then it'll be a nice memory of that. So yeah, it definitely means different to different people. And also, I almost think I've been to tournaments where they've raffled off prizes, and I almost think that's better in a way, except for maybe one or two, because no one is playing Blood Bowl specifically to win a prize anyway. And when you're lucky enough to have sponsors give you prizes, or a bit of cash left in the kitty to buy some nice stuff, generally the best players are going to get that every tournament, whereas it's actually nice to share it around, because everyone has contributed to the 20 quid or whatever that they've put into one of the tournament.
Now, perhaps this is just me being a product of Mad Starmer's woke Britain, but I went to Griff Bowl up in Harlow in Essex. It was a very small tournament. I had a really nice time. I think I won most Kaz or something that I don't care about. And it's not even about the Blood Bowl, which didn't go particularly well for me, but it was fine. I had a really nice day. But next to us, I forget whether it's the Marvel Crisis Shatterpoint or the Star Wars Protocol, whatever it's called, but one of those two systems was playing. And they gave absolutely everyone that attended a prize. Literally everyone got a prize. From a prize table, and the first person that had won went up and chose from the prize table first. And then literally they went down the rankings and everyone got to go up and grab something, and everyone went home with something. Is that a good idea? I mean, if we're sharing the wealth, should we share it to everyone?
Well, that's the discussion.
Only if you got enough money
right?
for it. Yeah.
You've just described Team Cup, where the year I went in Genoa, they gave a trophy to the highest placed member of your team.
Right.
And literally almost everybody got a trophy. The prize giving went on for about 90 minutes, nonetheless, and that was really enjoyable. But yeah, I think there's probably a bit where it goes too far, right, in terms of prizes for all in that sense.
Jock, where do you stand on this idea of a team versus the individual rankings at a team event?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a good one. I mean, like Stewbacca says, the first one out the gate is best painted. That's completely separate from any prize. So, like, winning best painted is ultimately, if you get that, that's, by the by in terms of the performance of the tournament. And one of the things I really love about Blood Bowl is that people on the competitive end talk about win conditions, and I actually think Blood Bowl is one of these games where people's win conditions can be completely different. So I've got a friend who has set out to try and win best painted. He was disappointed getting runner-up at UKTC, and then he won it the following year and was absolutely made up by that. His focus isn't about trying to win the competition. So I think the fact that we have all of these different types of opportunities to win something, it's also when someone asks for a clarification of the foul Kaz's count, and you can hear the audible groan from the Goblin coaches when the TO goes, no, this is not allowed, because their chance of winning best Kaz goes up the chimney at that point. For the record, home nations, if it's in the box, it counts. But yeah, in terms of kind of like splitting them out, I kind of take the view of you can win a team tournament and an individual one, particularly if it's in reference to the MVP. You come first individual in that sense. I think that should be recognised in that sense. I take your point about Kent with winning and most TDs. You probably don't, in a nice possible way, give a monkeys about most TDs at that point.
I mean,
and actually,
I wish to say I did, but I didn't.
There should be no harm at that point saying, right, well, we're going to hand over most TDs to, Joe, who was equal, but you had a better net TD, or he's one TD behind you, who cares?
Yeah.
At that point, it's an opportunity to make people feel relatively good. And I have to say, it's the point about, and Cor brings it up in chat about making the records accurate. It's not something I've thought terribly hard about until this evening. But I've always just put into the NAF record in the last 2 years I've run Home Nations with the award to whoever I've given it to. Because it feels a bit weird in some ways if you go, you're the most TD, and then they go to their NAF record and go, where's my most TD? Because they've not been given it, in that sense. Because what you don't do as a TO and stand up and go, well, James here's won most TD because PC's been fucking brilliant and he's won 3 already, but we've had to give it to James. Like, we don't make that caveat at the time, so why should we at that point make the caveat on the NAF record? I mean, I get it from a sort of historical accuracy point of view, but if we as TOs and the community, and by and large, is generally comfortable with the idea of share the wealth, then, put it on the record. And that's why I think Saul's outcome from the Amorcal lot is spot on. Obviously you didn't get the shiny metal plate or trophy or dice or whatever the crap was given out at the time, because it is tat at the end of the day. Although that said, all of mine's is on the mantelpiece, much to my wife's chagrin. But at the same time, the thing that counts is, was it on the NAF record in that sense? So yeah,
But that's what counts to some people. We can't assume that's what counts to everyone. But yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's perhaps like a middle ground where you announce who's won it, but then say, okay, they're not getting the prize, it goes to the next person. So they both get the recognition on the day, and then on their NF record.
Nothing
and that's something.
unreasonable. Yeah,
Yeah,
nothing unreasonable about acknowledgement of accreditation followed by the
Yeah.
passing down of the secondary prize. Like that could be completely fine. Like I've definitely heard before with tournament organizers say like, okay, so and so got most touchdowns, but he can't win another award,
Yeah.
so we're passing it over to so and so. They ended up getting this many touchdowns, and they will be your most touchdowns. Yada
Now,
yada yada.
I mean, I absolutely
I
agree.
don't.
I've heard that at several tournaments, but I've also heard people say in
Yeah.
response to us talking about this, if that was done, I would feel ashamed to walk up on that stage and collect that prize, knowing it wasn't mine. I disagree.
Some
I
people
think,
may.
yeah, leave it to that individual. If they don't want to collect it because of that reason, that's their choice. But I think most people would.
I think that at the end of the day, that seems reasonable enough. What about I hate to be the one to drive it forward, but what are your thoughts on most Kaz
I want to come
and
to that in just a sec because there is one more little
yeah.
tale I want to tell. I went to a singles
Oh,
event in London and I was
okay.
playing goblins. And I had a great day. This was back when we could still throw the Doom Diver before they got bad and then they got good again. And I went 2 wins, 2 draws, and no losses on goblins in a 4-game event. Very pleased with that as a stunty record. I thought that was a good showing and I was very happy with it. The winner of the event was a halfling coach who got 3 wins and 1 draw. He walked away with the tournament win. They also gave him best stunty and also most touchdowns and also most casualties. He walked away with all 4 of the awards that people tend to care about. Now, at the time, I was a little grumpy because I felt with Share the Wealth, that should mean I get a stunty win and a stunty on my NAF record. But I'll be honest, as time's gone on, I would always look back at that and go that I know that a fling coach that day got 3-1-0. So I would always feel internally that even if it was on my NAF record, it still didn't mean I'd really been top stunty at an event. But that's only my feelings.
Yeah, I've got a best stunty award with all the 5 stunty races. 3 of them I didn't win, and
Have you just
like
taken them
I
off
said,
someone else in a car park? Is that?
yeah, beating up a little kid. No, so it was where Snotlings won an event and it got handed down when 3rd place was an award and I was 4th place. And the 3rd place team was Ogres and I was Goblins and then one other one. And so I know that I wasn't the top stunty at that. I've got it on my profile. It says I've got 5 stunty cups. One of my goals is to get a stunty cup with all the teams. So I now want to get 3 more because I know that I didn't earn them. Although I also know that I probably shouldn't care too much about this.
Yeah.
It's just a silly game.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think it's an interesting contrast, right? Because like I think that moreover what we see is there's a genuine duality in the thought process behind these things, right? Like we acknowledge that we want more people to be happy, a utilitarian kind of approach towards a greater good, which is a happier event and happier participants. And then simultaneously, even we have like a little bit of these moments where we're like, okay, but I didn't really earn this. This isn't really real, and we're kind of wrestling with the notion of, but does it really count and should it be there? And I think it goes to show how much of a point that there is to both sides of this discussion, right? If our goal is to make people happy, should we be doing it at the expense of genuine results? And I don't know. I think that I have historically been completely fine with it. One time, a while ago, sorry to throw my own story in there, it was called Borak Has the Last Laugh. It was held at Brevard's Gaming Lounge. And in theme, I suppose, they decided it was thematic that Borak takes everything he can get. And so the prizes were handled accordingly. It was the first and last time I've ever seen a no share the wealth policy applied to a tournament. I walked in there, I took most Kaz, best defense, most touchdowns, 1st place, and then I walked home. And I don't think anyone had a great time about that, And the thing was, on the inverse of that, I didn't feel very good about it either. Right. So just on the other side there is, for me, it doesn't, like you were saying, PC, I felt like I felt like I took away some fun from other people in that process.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the truest compromise is handing out prizes, right? But just not writing something on them that isn't true.
I mean, even for the sociopathic amongst us, surely giving more people prizes means more victims, opponents next time
Would
round.
love, yeah. Or more pointedly too, I mean, if we do continue as we have been, which I'm sure we will, because let's be honest, this is not going to shake the foundation of all of Blood Bowl
How dare you?
organization. Yeah. Uh, okay. Like it's not this massively problematic thing, in my opinion, to do, and I think that uh, it it's pretty universally understood that those trophies come with an asterisk, and so because that is understood, the implication alone is just like we're just not going to fit it onto every trophy, right? Most touchdowns besides the guy that beat me. You can't you can't fit that on a trophy, but we know that every most touchdowns trophy or almost every most touchdowns trophy usually means except for possibly first place, maybe. Right?
Not this
We
one.
know that. It's implied. Yeah. So if we can understand universally the implications there, then is it a problem? I don't know. I don't think it has to be.
I don't know, and certainly that's where we want to talk about. I think we've talked enough about this specific issue. Let's talk more generally about prizes. A prize is a good idea. It's a silly kids game. Do we even need prizes? Should we just turn up, roll dice, have fun, go home? Why do we give people prizes? Surely it's to make them happy, to make them feel that investment in their time and their energy and their literally their money has produced something that they can turn around and say to themselves and to other people, here, look, here's something nice that shows I did something and I'm not, I don't know, maybe not terrible at it or just had a good weekend or whatever. So more prizes is good, isn't it, Jock?
But I think if you let's not bother with prizes, then by extension, why keep score at that point? At the end of the day, it's a nice way to mark the end of the tournament, say cheerio, recognize, people achieving the things that they want to achieve. As I said earlier, there's different win conditions. A goblin coach that doesn't give a rat's ass about whether he wins or loses, but is delighted that his chainsaws made mincemeat of your team in the process, is his joy or her joy. At the end of the day, we should. I think prizes, as long as they're not I would caveat not to the Tillian Team Cup of Genoa experience where literally every person in a 200-person competition had a prize. That's wild. But I think
and presumably at the World Cup next year we will also get, as well as the winning teams, we will get 30 best of that race as we did at Alicante. So that's going to be a long prize ceremony as well.
Well, as long as they do them in a sorry.
Just
Sorry, so.
No, it's okay. I do apologize for the interruption. I'm just one a slight bit pressed for time, but two, I actually think if 200 people get a prize, but the prizes don't, there's nothing false or misleading. It's just you get a team, you get some dice cups, you get this. If 200 people get a prize out of 200 people, I don't look down on that. I think that's actually a good thing. Because you're saying at the expense of that, but I'm thinking well, that's great. Actually, I think that 200 people showing up and all getting something cool is great.
Me neither.
I
but
the time wasted not being at the bar.
there is that. Okay, so that's one genuine point against it. I have to say, during the Alicante Prize Awards, I didn't waste that time. I did get to the bar. So you say that. I have to say we're not necessarily universal in the idea that prizes are a good thing. So let me just find the specific one I wanted to read out. Was it that one?
Suboptimal play, Matto?
Yeah, all of these are slightly relevant. So the first couple are from Discord. I'm not fond of awards that reward suboptimal play, like worst record, wooden spoon, or most Kaz, as you will always get someone who is not good enough to get the actual top award, and instead go for those types of awards. And with BB events usually going by strength of schedule for ties, it can genuinely fuck you over if you get one of those clowns as one of your matchups through no fault of your own. I don't mind other commiseration awards like first quad skull or most times charged against, but those tend to be spot awards rather than end of the events awards, I would say. Or whatever, but at least you can really get into these types of awards. But even then, if some minge bag starts trying to get one of those, then it should be removed too. It's a shame, but sadly, some people have to ruin the tournament for some bauble, so then it's better to scrap to promote actual good play. Now, I think we can definitely put Matto in the category of try hard, which I think is interesting.
I think, yeah, I
But
think
on-
Matto's been touched on appropriately by a Goblin coach, by the sounds of it.
But on a separate Discord, we had another not dissimilar view from Alpine, who said, everyone as a winner is a corrosive mindset, falsely elevates the achievements of those who do win, and doesn't incentivize people to win as strongly as first place takes all does. Given that there's little to no risk with BB, it's a child's dice game after all, there's no reason to have payouts that can compensate the wider player pool as we see in poker. So, in an environment where the rewards are meaningless anyway, the Dice 1x tournament, it was just a small local tourney, not much prestige, it seems to me even more meaningless to parade losers as winners. The NAF ranking is a better driver for some people's argument in the TT's engagement in the tabletop scene, and so very, 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 very few people actually chase that. So I would say that there exists a better method for getting people engaged in tabletop than giving out a slew of tat as prizes. Perhaps make the games a little less daunting, perhaps have a good pool of teams people can loan out to lower the barrier to entry. And then, strangely, we had a Facebook person sort of coming in on the same tune. Yeah, it's been a funny debate, really. Been half following it down here in Oz. We typically share the wealth as far as picks from the prize table go, but typically still award the trophy to the relevant coach. I've never quite understood who wants a best or most something if that wasn't you. Are you honestly proud displaying that on your shelf? Sounds more like the Junior Sports Participation Award. In direct reference to most CAS having an effect on play style, I've only ever heard of one instance of this in Australia, and ultimately it does feel like it's a nothing problem. Don't yuck people's yum. Some of these awards are the best chance of some coaches due to their actual Blood Bowl ability to get a prize and some recognition. I see them as inclusive rather than a negative. So interestingly, that I felt was on both sides of the debate at the same time, and I'm hoping the first half was maybe sarcastic. So there are some people out there who are genuinely saying, look, if we're going to be competitive, and for example, another person said, I think in jest, as a straw man argument, that we should seed all events so that the competitive players don't have to have a strength of schedule ruined by playing some scrub who's just there to foul things. Now that did happen this last year. We had I say that happened. We do have a tournament that is seeding the better players at the very start, which is Pipey's UK Masters. So we do perhaps have some of the more competitive element looking for a competitive field where there will be competitive games right from the very outset. But do any of us agree that perhaps this could be hurting us? So, I know you've got to disappear. Let's have that response.
So sorry. Yes, I do genuine apologies for like jumping in. Just this will be my last suggestion moment. So yeah, these can be problems. At the end of the day, you are often, when measuring by strength of schedule, defined by the weakest player you encounter, and your first round is absolutely random, right?
Yep.
And so you cannot determine if you're going to fight the guy going for most CAS who never touches the ball just to line up 4 blocks every like 2 turns. That's a thing. You run into it, right? These players are real, and they play for that. As long as you provide a trophy to award or incentivize this kind of play style, somebody will aim for it. And right, wrong. Look, man, I think that it requires an element of good faith approach. I think that there has to be a general communal desire to approach in good faith to play the game towards an objective-based conclusion beyond just playing for that trophy. Not everyone's going to do that, and you can't control everyone or make them do that. What you can do is provide buffers versus these outlier results. So, for example, in a 5-round tournament, my round 1 is versus Captain Ogre, and Captain Ogre is playing murder ogres that don't touch the ball. He's playing for most CAS, right? And my problem is Captain Ogre loses every single game he plays because he is not trying to win. He wants wooden spoon most CAS. And so my strength of schedule drastically affected by this. I had no control over this match into this guy, right? My results and decisions couldn't have changed it. Somebody else goes 5-0-0 that weekend. I lose, and there's nothing I could have done from the onset on a perfect week of play. Now, this is always going to be the case in a strength of schedule system, but
because it might not be Captain Ogre, it might just be Dimmy G. It might just be someone that's shit at Blood Bowl.
So, Jesus Christ, PurpleChest, stop. Demi is a.
Everyone knows I'm kidding. I'm a big fan of DB's Blood Bowl.
He's doing his best.
Play.
No. One initial suggestion would be like, oh, drop the lowest, right? Drop the lowest strength of schedule, because at least after your round one,
Sure.
your win controls you pushing up into a higher bracket, which means you hit a higher average, and you're likely to play other people that are playing to win as well. Now, the problem with this is, what if your first round is like, I don't know, Grither, right? Like, and you're fighting American top 3 coach, and it's a great win. Well, you know.
So perhaps they all stay till the
round,
end of the event, and then the lowest of your 5 scores disappears?
The lowest, exactly. So this is the point, right? You just take the most outlier result and cut it.
Okay.
Therefore, the players that fight hard in round one are still rewarded for winning a hard round one, and the players that fight captain kick and foul, they're not as penalized by running. Or like one time, I played in a tournament, and the player I beat in round one actively said they wanted my strength of schedule to be weaker, so they left the tournament. It was a 2-day tournament. My strength of schedule was uncatchable. I could not do it at that point.
Yeah.
Their repeated concessions to actively and intentionally sabotage, it worked. What can I do? Nothing I can do. And that's the thing, is you put it in your opponent's hands, right? You put it into your opponent's hands. Now, this isn't a universal solve, but it mitigates some of the more extenuating circumstances. You run into 2 captain kick and fouls, or captain ogre, or whatever you want to call him.
I want to call him Nimiji, but let's move on.
So it's tough, right? And sometimes that's going to happen, and you can't control for every outlier, but we could mitigate them somewhat by reducing, just by dropping the lowest oppositional score. Dropping would provide a closer and fairer average, and more likely filter out the players that weren't playing to win in the first place.
I mean, in a six game event, that's definitely shoe. In a 3-game event, perhaps a little tougher to do. Stu?
Tougher to do.
I quite like that as a suggestion. From a TO perspective, we need software that allows us to do that.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, luckily we've got some really smart nerds that do support Blood Bowl, so hopefully that could be done. That does sound like a good system.
Maybe somebody could get a hold of Sean, right, from the BBT.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure he might have a look at this. And we do have Krista in the chat. He's saying that in other game systems that take one off your strength of schedule, whatever the lowest score is at the end of the event, is a fairly common in other systems. So perhaps we do need to learn from other games. Perhaps we don't need to be quite the little tiny our own niche that we perhaps have been over time.
Interesting. I was talking about this
Jock.
the weekend with Gegster, actually. I think there's a caveat to all of this kind of conversation. I think it depends on the type of tournament and the reason for that tournament. Obviously, a NAFC, an Amorical, a Eurobowl, people are going there for the prestige of winning, a very competitive tournament. But obviously, I've likened the NAFC to the London Marathon. You have your fun runners at the back, dressed as ogres and goblins, but then you've got your elite runners at the front. And so how do you kind of separate them? And I think that's, this is a problem that's worth considering. How do we tackle it? But where it comes to, the local scout hut fun haver, if you will, putting out all the cliches here, no one cares at that point. So I think it's got to be appropriate. And Gegster and I were chatting about this around Eurobowl, controversially perhaps, around the idea of, there are some nations that are just not as good, and they'll affect Team England's strength of schedule if we get them round one. And I'm not unsympathetic to that. And he was sort of putting up the idea of using the McMahon system, which kind of looks to try and seed. So I do think that,
Team England player, gamey, competitive, and disrespectful of other nations. I refuse to believe it.
There's also examples of it not affecting you. They say Salty Murcutt, who won the NAF Championships this year, I can't remember which game it was, maybe 2 or 3, came up against the person who won most casualties and who was very much out to win most casualties, and did. And he still won the tournament. So, it's entirely possible that it won't affect you. And I think my view is that we shouldn't affect... We have no right to say how people enjoy this game.
100%. I mean, I've always said that I think Blood Bowl is a game you can play in a variety of ways, and that's entirely up to you. You want to role play it, you can role play it. You want to be super competitive, you can. If you want to play for silly giggles and fun and do the stupid stuff, you absolutely can. If you care about team development, you can play leagues and that can be important to you. If you care just ruthlessly about winning, you can aim at that. So Blood Bowl is a game you have a right to play in any way that sparks fun, that makes you happy. The caveat to that is so does your opponent. And what you don't have the right to do is to define how they should be playing the game. I mean, it's pretty much how I think about lots of things in life. You have the right to be whoever you want to be. What you don't have the right to do is tell other people who they should be. You can persuade them, you can talk to them, but you can't
and that's the
force
benefit of the
them.
system. That's the benefit of the system, right? So if we provide these mitigations for these outliers, it actually provides more space, not less, for people to engage with the game in a way that they enjoy without it necessarily yucking someone else's yum.
Yeah.
Right? You're less inclined to be bothered by running into a player playing for the wooden spoon with his bandolier of wooden spoons in round one, because it's not the ultimate breaker of your tournament, right? And likewise, the guy playing the wooden spoon that loves his wooden spoons, he just gets to play his game. He gets to do his thing. Shows up, goes for his spoon. Bless him.
I mean, the flip side of that is that you turn up to the NFC, you've got a chance of rolling into Captain Spoon. You've also got a chance of rolling into Purple Goo. So to some extent, everyone's in that pool that has that same chance of drawing that same coach. If you're unlucky, then maybe it was your time to be unlucky in that one specific way, in this incredibly luck-based game we play.
I am for mitigating luck in extenuating circumstances like that.
Okay.
When possible, because it is a theoretical dice roll, but not a physical one. We roll enough dice over the board. We shouldn't have to roll dice about who we face in round one of a tournament to determine the outcome of our tournament, whether or not we win every game, which is a possibility. I think, though, that, there is, no matter what, an element of randomness about it, right? So, okay, we remove the lowest, but then the next set of guys, there is...
You only got one terrible player, I got two.
Right. But at least we reduce the RNG, right? We can't fully mitigate, nor should we pursue some system that in some way 100% mitigates it.
Everybody plays Purple Goo twice,
our own tail.
And then we pool the results. I think that's the only fair way.
But
I think the interesting thing, though, with Pippi, for example, with UK Masters, obviously specifically set out to try and attract a caliber field by, leveraging space for people who've been capped at Eurobowl, and obviously not everybody that's been capped at Eurobowl is the world's best coach. There's
I never have and never will be.
Well.
Gentlemen, you'll have to excuse me. I have to take my leave. I'm 15 over. I do apologize.
Sol, thank you for staying so much.
For having me.
Thank you for your opinion. It's been really useful.
Have a lovely evening, everyone.
Now we can say what we really think about you.
A chance to discuss. So sorry, must run.
Pleasure. Thanks for coming in. Now, at this point, we had pre-agreed that we are going to have a hydration break. So if you want to go and watch some adverts and pretend that you're having a drink, then now is the time to do that. I hope that another friend of ours will be joining us on this call who's been listening along and says they have some opinions they wanted to bring in, particularly when we got to the more general prizes. So if that person is listening and does want to come and leap onto the call, now would be the time to do so. If you're wondering what I've been drinking and this weird red substance, it's a very pleasant Aldi-produced very cherry cider. So that's what I've been doing this evening, after just a very ordinary glass of orange squash, which is what I started off with. If you could turn your camera on, we'd love to see your face. There we go. Now, I'm now going to turn off the namings because they're all now wrong. But I'm very pleased to welcome BB Nuts to the show, very well-known streamer, Blood Bowl personality, and tournament organizer himself. So before we kick into some of the other stuff we're going to discuss, which is all of the other prizes, whether they're good for Blood Bowl, what other ideas might be out there, what have you been making of it so far? What's your response to what you've heard?
I think I'm mostly kind of somewhere between Jock and Stu on this so far. Generally speaking, if it's a team event, I see that as a very different thing from a individual and team prize. I think, as Jock said, if your team's gone 6-0-0 and you went 6-0-0 and you're the only 6-0-0, you should get both awards because that's the reason why your team went 6-0-0 and you are the MVP. With the whole share the wealth thing, I've actually been thinking about listening to this. I don't think I do it where on the NAF, it will say whoever got most touchdowns got most touchdowns. I don't care if you won the tournament, you won the Sunty Cup and everything like that. but I give the prizes out to whoever came second, and we make it known on the day. But I actually think now I'm actually going to change how I do that going forward, because I think, as some people said, it can be a bit confusing. I've never had anyone come up to me and say, but I got the prize for most casualties. I didn't get most casualties on the NAF website. And I think maybe, although I think we are clear of the message in the Southwest, I think we could be clearer. So that's something I'm going to look at for my next tournament in a few weeks.
I mean, there's so much of this that could be solved by tournament organisers communicating well, having some empathy in both directions, both for the tournament organiser and then for the players, and with good communication. But as you know, as Stu and Jock rightly said, there's a lot of pressure at that key moment where the game ends. Maybe some data's been incorrectly inputted, and you've heard about that and need it correcting. People want to get home. You've got prizes to award. You're tired. It's been a day or 2 days of hot, heavy Blood Bowl. There is a real pressure nexus there in getting things right and making sure that all the awards are right and that everyone's happy. Really, really tough to do.
I've actually got a more embarrassing story than Stu's one from the first Kent Team Championship, where at my last event, I told Hex Baron he'd won the tournament, and we had one result coming in. And I'm like, well, that's not going to make a difference. And then I won the tournament because I was training for schedule. So the only I told him he'd won the tournament, he hadn't, and I won the tournament. And I was like, oh, that feels really bad.
If it makes you feel better, lots of people after that happened came to me with stories of them having done it as well. And one of those is Mike Davies giving out the wrong award at the World Cup, which puts anything else into into perspective.
Well, I mean, I was at Thrud last year, lovely event, and a very, very nice coach was awarded the most stunty awards, the best stunty. But in his final game, he had played another stunty coach and lost. So even as he was called up, he knew in his heart, there is absolutely no way this can be right. That other stunty coach must have beaten me because he beat me in the final round. So we must have been on the same points before, and now I'm one loss under him. But the social pressure to still go up and say thank you for this award when the award was called out meant he still walked up and accepted that award, took the smile, let his photo be taken and walked away thinking, there's no way this is mine. And it was, of course, corrected afterwards in the fullness of time. But, mistakes do happen. And the social pressure to keep those awards going, to not get in the way, to not put your hand up in front of 300 people and say, but no, I mean, really tough thing to do. So I don't even know where that pressure point is and who should be responsible for it. But I mean, I don't know if in the same situation,
it depends on your personality as well, doesn't it?
Sure.
Some people would say, and also I guess your experience as well. Like a really new coach might not understand that there's a mistake, or someone might not have the not be outgoing enough, or whatever the right term is, to be able to say that. Whereas maybe some of us on the call would actually go, no, I don't think this is right. Do you want to check?
Yeah.
Some of us might not. It's all in the moment as well. It's difficult to know what you would do.
If someone gives me an award that I know I'm not due, I'll just take it, leap in the car, and get out of there as quick as I can before someone realises the mistake. I've got a collection.
Depends what the prize is.
Yes, it does. Yeah, I'm kidding. I don't know what I'd do. I really don't. I mean, I'm used to speaking in public in front of thousands of people sometimes, and I'm still not sure I'd be able to stop a tournament prize awards with 100 people watching and say, actually, I think you've completely fucked up. Because I'd feel for the tournament organisers. I wouldn't want them...
Yeah.
Because then every other prize is like, well, is that right? I don't know, maybe correcting it afterwards is the right way. I really don't know.
I mean, it's easy enough done. We've all been there with like tour play or Blood Bowl team manager app events where you've sat down for the second round and then someone's gone, redraw. There was an incorrect result put in, and that's with two people checking the result. On top of when we're using score and you completely relied on the TO putting it in correctly, or their assistant more likely. So you have all it happens. We're all human. But yeah, it sucks when it's round 6 and it affects people who get the awards.
Now let's move on a little more broadly to the awards. I did raise this one a minute ago. This is a most Kaz award that I have. I don't remember which event it was for. Does it say? Oh yeah, okay. So it was the Pearly Kings and Queens, number 7. Yeah, 17. I didn't go for that. I wasn't tracking it during the event. I was pretty surprised when at the end they read it out. I think I had 1 win and 4 draws, or 1 win and 3 draws. It might be a 4 in a day. But I'd had undead, and my mummies had done some killing, but I just hadn't, managed to win any games. So I was really surprised when they read it out. They gave me the award. I thought, it's a nice looking little thing. I guess I've won that now. It'll be something new on my NAF page. I was kind of happy to win it. Is it an award we should be giving out, though? I mean, I'm going to throw him under the bus. I know it was said to me privately, but he's a lovely guy with a great sense of humour. Gagster once turned to me during the NAFC as we were handing out the most cows at the NAFC. Oh, while we were both clapping the person that had won it, he turned to me and went, "Isn't it odd how most cows never ends up winning?" Which I thought was interesting. It never seems that someone with the most cows ends up winning. Most touchdowns sometimes does, but most cows rarely does. Is it a toxic award all by itself? Does it actually belong in Blood Bowl? You're 3 tournament organisers. You give a most cows award, should you? Does it encourage negative and bad play? And is that a problem? I mean, we've all said we want people to come with all sorts, but is that right for tournaments?
I'd say yes. I know when I first got getting into tournaments, back when there was only like 30 a year in the UK, if you can believe that, you had all these really, really good players who would travel the entire length of the country to play tournaments because there wasn't many. And so when you're first getting into it, like, okay, I want to feel like I'm getting better. I want to feel like I'm getting an award. So I would aim for most CAS because that's something that even at my lower level at that point, I could aim for. Yes, might have ended up ruining someone's fun by dicing them off the pitch. You can do that when you're not trying to win most CAS to be fair.
Now, before we bring Jock and stewbacca in on this, we do have the Artemis Black in chat, and one of the things I really enjoyed about his videos, which were a little ranty and some people took against, but I thought made some interesting points. I won't say I agree with them all, but some really interesting points. One idea he put forward that I thought was incredibly sensible was perhaps instead of most CAS, we have a most brutal. And to be qualified for it, you have to have at least a 50% record in the tournament. So that means you could still go to be aggressive, but you'd have to be trying to also win some games.
I think NAF Champs has a caveat in it. I forget exactly what it is, but I think it's most casualties, but you have to have at least one game out of your 6. So yeah, a caveat on that is fine. And I think it's going to definitely be different at NAF Champs to a 30-player local tournament, and especially if 30-player local tournament is 75% people who don't travel to larger tournaments or don't go to many tournaments, for them to have an award at one of the 2 or 3 events that they go to a year is quite nice.
I think it's lovely. But I'm trying to put forward controversial views here and get us all talking. I'm completely against it, of course. Give as many awards as we possibly can. Jock?
I think the idea of like ruling out most CAS strikes me as being through the lens of the hyper competitive. The coaches that are there to win tournaments, and like, okay, I get that. You don't want to be facing the infamous goblins, or even worse these days, snotlings with Ripper and lobbing snotlings at your ball carrier and ruining your fun by making it harder to win. But people play the game for different reasons, and like that's one of the great joys of this game. It brings a community together made up of different people from different backgrounds and walks of life and different abilities. Ultimately, I mean, sure, if you wanted to start with the premise of let's try and make coaches generally improve their skill ceiling as they play these tournaments, sure, turn off most CAS or even have the positive record. That's not a bad shout. But at the end of the day, I think Blood Bowl speaks to people for different reasons, and you can't get away from the simple fact that it's got blood in the name. So let's have a best CAS and let those people have their fun. Ultimately,
I also think there's
I'm not going to name names.
Sorry, let's not.
Okay.
I was going to say, I'm not going to name names, but a very prominent coach in the community has told me very recently that removing players is the only way to win games of Blood Bowl. So
they're not right.
I mean,
no, they're not right. But
I mean, I say that I was in Gibraltar a couple of weekends ago. Went to get my 18th NAF country badge.
Block on the rock.
And Yeah, Block on the Rock, great tournament. Everybody should go.
Love to go.
Although not at the same time because there's only about spaces for 40 coaches. But yeah, Jordan's wonderful host. But I went out there with a Chaos chosen roster. I'd never played Chaos before. I'm an elf coach by trade, if you will, and I managed to conjure up a roster that allowed me Block, Mighty Blow, Claw, Warrior, and I won my first most Kaz. I was thrilled.
Yeah.
I came nowhere near the win of the tournament, but that wasn't my agenda. My agenda was get Gibraltar on the list, meet a new Blood Bowl community, and I had this wickedly fun roster. And I went there with no intention to. I mean, obviously, I didn't sit there and try and throw games, but I knew I had a suboptimal roster for winning the tournament and a suboptimal race, given the rule pack. But I made that as a conscious choice, and that was my win condition. And I think that's the same is true for every coach that decides to spend their own hard-earned money and their time, often away from family, to go and play this silly game. It's their choice, and we come at it with different reasons.
Another thing I've mentioned is I do know some people where perhaps a slightly younger coach might think that understanding the game and knowing how to hurt things is something they can grasp. But then 2 or 3 years later, they learn the rest of the game and they spread out onto other races and try other things. But it gives them something to aim at that feels achievable, even if you don't really understand the full game. I kind of hate to lose that.
Get rid of other players, then you can go and take the ball and walk in.
Yeah. Still gives you a route to win.
Yeah. I mean, I like Jock. I'm primarily an elf player now, I think, but I started off playing dwarfs, and I've played quite a bit of chaos as well, and have a ridiculous number of most casualties for an elf player. Not playing elves, obviously, but yeah, it's a way to play the game. It's just a different strategy to how you play when you play elves, right? You play orcs or dwarfs or whoever, you beat up the other team, and then they can't run around you.
But as Sol said, we do. I mean, I haven't come across that many myself in the UK, but he says he knows at least 3 or 4 coaches in America. Australian person, which gave me a chance to play with one of my accents earlier, did say that they know of at least one person in Australia who genuinely will try and get the most Kaz by deliberately losing, because the more they're scored against, the more line of scrimmages they get. And of course, instead of 1 blitz, that means you're getting 4 line of scrimmage hits and a blitz and probably a good foul off as well. So there is genuinely a case that some people may be playing sort of anti-Blood Bowl in order to try and just win this one prize.
Isn't that called Underworld?
I mean,
I mean, there's also a massive element of luck to it. Like, if you rock into 3 stunty teams with especially in the old rules with dwarfs, and you go, oh cool, so I've got tackle, block, I'm going to kill so many players here, and then the other guy going for most Kaz gets orcs, and dwarfs. It's
it doesn't matter what they do.
There's an element of luck to it.
Yeah,
I do very much consider it the lesser of the sub awards, because it's a bit of a who rolled the most 10+s sometimes,
or who rolled into snobbers.
But there is also a way of maximizing it, and it is a playstyle. So the bigger question comes now is when you have events where all casualties count. And that's where I think the controversial thing comes up, where it should only be casualties from actual blocks or fouls, maybe. But because again, then you run into vampires and they're killing their own fouls for you, and you're getting free casualties for the awards. That's another one where I sometimes wonder and I sometimes, for simplicity, especially for more casual event, I'll go, look, just anything in the box, because that way there's no awkwardness of having to remember how they all died. And
if I throw a snotling and it dies, does that count as one I've killed or one you've killed? Who gets the point for that?
The opponent, technically, which is then is that in the spirit of it?
Yeah.
Well, you force them into a situation where they feel they need to throw snotlings.
Yeah.
No, they brought Ripper and always plans to, but yes.
Yeah, yes.
The other one that got a lot of controversy was Wooden Spoon, and I don't want to run out of time for Wooden Spoon. Now, I don't hate a Wooden Spoon. I confess it's the award other than Tournament Organizer, which I will never have, that I don't have on my NAF profile, and I don't know, maybe one day I'll get a Wooden Spoon. It doesn't motivate me, whereas I don't have most stunty, of course, because it was robbed from me by the toxic halflings, which I wouldn't have deserved and wouldn't consider it that I still had. So whilst one day I would like to get a most stunty, I'm not sure I'd like to get a wooden spoon. It doesn't motivate me. But again, I do hear there are people motivated to get their wooden spoons. Is it a problem, and should wooden spoon be a thing? Now, we've had a lot of suggestions here. Some people said you should decide the wooden spoon by who wins the table between the bottom two coaches in the last round. Is that a better route? Thrud,
I like that. Well, that's what Frud does, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Thrud also has a sort of dock bowl where the bottom four coaches all play each other at once in a game I don't understand and isn't quite Blood Bowl. But Thrud also has a secret award they've only ever given out twice in their history, I heard, whilst preparing for this. And it's very similar to Andy Davo, who I believe, I don't know if he still does, but certainly in the first year of the, when his big tournament was called the Bang Average Chicken Tournament, had a Bang Average award given to the person who finishes on an exactly balanced record in the middle of the field. To win it at Thrud, you have to have 2-2-2 across the 6 games. You have to have exactly balanced touchdowns and exactly balanced CAS and be exactly in the middle of the field. And it's only happened twice. So there we are. That's something you can try for at Thrud, but really hard to organise.
I've actually won Dave's one, although I
Okay.
wasn't quite.
So you are bang average.
And I think I wasn't that tournament. I had a bad tournament, but I think technically I was -1 on CAS, but I was the most bang average.
Okay.
I say, but it was pretty damn close. 2-2-2, touchdowns equal, and I think CAS was like 11-12. It was pretty average.
We were
Jock.
sharing the wealth with you, and you weren't even an average coach, but you still took that award.
Jock, should we be giving people wooden spoons? Are we just humiliating them anyway?
It's an interesting one. I haven't thought long and hard about all this sort of stuff until, not even when you asked me. I was like, yeah, I'll do that thing on Sunday.
Thanks. Great to know you prepared. I said, just turn up and bring opinions. This is an opinion I want. Should you, as a tournament organizer, be rewarding and humiliating the player who has done the least well by giving them a wooden spoon?
I think humiliating's probably not the right word. And I'm curious as to coaches that set out to the idea of wanting to win the wooden spoon. Like, that mentality I just don't get in the slightest. That said, I don't think, awarding a wooden spoon to effectively a new coach who is obviously trying to learn the game, a bit of sort of recognition in the sense that they're there taking part effectively. And of course, wooden spoons have been traditional in sport for a very long time, harking back to six nations and 5 nations, even
this,
in the
this
19th
isn't
century.
a sport. This is a dice game.
No,
Yes,
indeed.
serious.
Okay, just saying, in case we're all going mad.
I mean, and to that point, it's a dice game. Like, should we really sweat it? I don't. I mean, like you, I'm never going to try for a wooden spoon. I'd be horrified if I ended up with a wooden spoon. But for some, it's quite nice. I mean, like last year at Home Nations, Cowan Designs, who did our trophies, did a very, very nice dice jail for the wooden spoon winners. So they got a nice little dice jail to put all the terrible ones into jail and never use them again. And it was a nice little gift. And it's a sort of there's a saying as well at Loughborough, being a Loughborough alum, where the tournament takes place. Thanks for coming. Loughborough famously say thanks for coming because you're going to turn up to Loughborough and just lose because
they're very good at sport.
So
academically,
thanks
they're
for coming.
very good at sport.
Yeah, well, they've often said that Loughborough is a drinking university. A sporting university with a drinking problem, or the other way around. I forget which.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think having like a small gift, a small bit of recognition that sort of says, thanks for coming. Like, I don't see anything wrong with that ultimately.
I mean, if it's encouraging toxic play, but then, as we've all said,
I think it's very niche, right? Like, who in their right mind is like going to every single tournament and thinking, you know what I want to do? I want to lose all of my games so that I can get this wooden spoon.
I'll tell you a positive use of the spoon. We have these 2 guys coming to a lot of our events from Weymouth. They've played about a year or so now. Bobbity Bear and Coolaholic, and between them, they've won every single spoon between them. The last event I went to down in Exeter, both of them finished basically mid-table, and they were so chuffed not to be coming home with a spoon. So it kind of, there is like, and it's funny enough that I think Bobby Bear said his wife said, we don't need any more spoons, please don't come home with one. So,
Supportive
but-
partner,
but
got
then-
it.
but it was a nice achievement for them that
Yeah.
they've gone from where they would lose every free game, and they were losing every game, and now they're getting to kind of like almost 50% win rate, which is
Almost.
for them. It
I
shows
mean,
that sign of progression.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like they're almost, and it's great. It's
It is.
so that's the positive side of the spoon, where you can kind of chart your way up.
Okay, I think we've discussed, to me, every aspect of this that I wanted to do. So before I just turn and say any more thoughts to any of you, is there anything about prizes and taking part in tournaments and giving out of prizes that you don't feel we've covered adequately this evening, any of you three? Stewbacca, anything you feel we haven't, or that we've glossed over on the way? Do you have any problems with most touchdowns or best hat or all the other lovely prizes we give?
No, we've had a best hat award before. It was won by White Hot from Bromley for a very well-made home designed Blood Bowl hat, complete with a ball that went over the.
Yeah, just briefly on that, I went to one event where the biggest prize they gave out, which was that was all themed around gangsters, the Godfather one down in Tunbridge Wells. I forget exactly what it's called. And the biggest prize they gave out, that's right. The biggest prize they gave out is a violin case with a glass replica of a Tommy gun inside it. Now, you're only given it for a year. You're supposed to bring it back to the next one. It's not given to anyone for how they play Blood Bowl. It's given to the person that dresses the best for the event. Because it's themed around this idea of gangsters. And we had a lovely coach turn up in literally a full gangster outfit, looking absolutely spiffing. And we all absolutely cheered when rightly they were given this lovely glass Tommy gun to take home. I would have loved to have had it, but I just turned up in some Blood Bowl gear. I won the event and got, I don't even remember, I think I got a £5 prize for the local dice shop, which it turns out don't ship outside of Tunbridge Wells. So I gave it back to the tournament and said, look, spend it on one of your young players or whatever. So yeah, I mean, there are ways of giving prizes that are non-traditional and really fun, like Best Hat. Anything we haven't covered, Stu?
Yeah, no, I just think I think it's perhaps important to separate the trophy from the prize in the discussion as well.
Okay.
I think I would always share the prize, the prizes, but from this discussion and what's gone on is perhaps maybe not the trophies, but I guess it depends what they are as well. Yeah, nothing more really other than that. Actually, do we all want trophies as well anyway? Because as I mentioned earlier, those of us talking have probably won quite a few trophies. Might be running out of space for them for some of us. They become less meaningful the more you win, unless you win something really big like NAF Champs, really. But yeah, that's perhaps a different point as well.
Jock, anything you feel we haven't covered, and any learnings you're taking away as a TO?
No, I mean, I definitely go away having had this discussion, thinking about how am I going to approach trophies in a fortnight's time, and definitely how I'm going to communicate whatever I land on ultimately.
Oh, Jock, I did have a suggestion. For the Open specifically, you should give a prize for whichever coach is listed first on the participants page.
And I think pulling together an international team at the shortest notice should definitely be recognised with some form of prize. But yeah, I mean, you do you, obviously, John.
I mean, I think a couple of things. I think one of the awards that we often overlook, and it was actually a bit of a nicely self-post, I guess. I was stood outside Bobali last year chatting with Stimmy, and he was like, the award I really like is Best Defence. That's the one that kind of like talks about how well you play Blood Bowl in the sense of you denying scores and stuff like that, and obviously you still have to kind of progress. And I was delighted to go 7-1-0, conceding only one touchdown the entire tournament and one Best Defence. But so yeah, I think that trophy is not utilised as much as it could. I think it's quite cool. I mean, obviously, naturally, given the nature of Blood Bowl, we think of most TDs, but most defence is quite nice. And I've already announced it, but UKTC will have the best dressed team in January next year. So get your silky threads on defending champ, Jimmy, fantastic stream team. I want to see you guys come glittering.
Well, I think the four of us
award,
would turn up in mankinis. I think that's a shame.
yeah, oh my God, you might get barred if you turn up in a mankini. But that is an award that will be open to the winners of the tournament as well. So there's your challenge, PC.
How dare you? I am beautiful, even if it's only on the inside.
With the best defence, you may know a bit better than me, Jock, from all your international travels. But I think it's perhaps given out in some countries and not others. I think they do it quite a lot in America, but we perhaps don't do it in the UK.
I'll be honest, I've never heard of best defence until
I think
the whole
I've seen it
awards
once
thing
or
came up.
twice, but rarely.
The other one that's quite nice, I'll give a name shout out to a lovely tournament, is the Titanic Cup, where they actually have the sort of the sinking and the rising of coaches that go well or worst on day one and then sort of reverse over on day two. So that's quite a unique thing in terms of like I mean, I've seen it in a couple other tournaments, but it's thematic with the Titanic in Belfast, which I think is in September and is now a national. So get yourself over there if you want a country badge. It's run by a Ginger Goblin at the Harlequins Rugby Club. But they do some lovely prizes as well and handmade trophies. I think that's the other thing we've not necessarily touched on is like, how do you like make your trophies and stuff like that? Some people are really creative and put in a lot of effort and sort of time. I am not one of those people. I get someone that is skilled in the art of trophy making to make some nice trophies, like the Black Hawk dice down dice
Absolutely beautiful.
that PC lovingly strokes before going to bed every night.
I've got some absolute horrors as well. I was very lucky to win a few times in a row in Brighton. It looks like I won't be there this year. I didn't realise the tickets were on sale and I've missed out. But there they have, clearly a local artist makes some individual trophies. And I think individual is right, with skull faces and spikes all over them and glowing red eyes, and about yay big. So some really, really unattractively large trophies that are almost impossible to carry home. And yet I always have. I feel really bad about throwing trophies in the bin, and yet really I ought to, because I have, as you say, I have a few, and my partner doesn't love them.
We had the like the most successful coach in our league who hasn't played for a few seasons. He also plays like a sport nationally, sport for England at his level.
Wow.
He returned a whole bunch of his trophies to our local shop where we play a few weeks ago, because obviously he just doesn't have space anymore, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, how long are they all going to last? But then, like you say, there's some that you win that you'll be like, right, well, that one is staying forever, either because of the tournament wars or because it's just really fucking cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the ones that Tofu got for the Bromley event recently, the Eurotrash, with like his mate just made loads of little cool dustbins with like European flag logo on it, and they all lit up and everything. They're amazing.
Yeah, unfortunately that day I did prioritise going to the Arsenal final home game the next day, and I just wasn't well enough to do 2 events in 2 days running. So I pulled out of that at the very last minute and felt some huge regret about it, but these things happen. BB Nut, any final thoughts? Anything we haven't covered that you think we should, or any learning from it as a TO that you're taking away tonight?
So one of the things, talk about prizes, one of the things I kind of learnt from playing other games is like one of the guys used to win, when I used to play Flames of War, used to win most of the tournaments, who sadly no longer with us, Steve Charlton. He had every army in the game. So when you'd win a tournament, they'd go, here's a new army, and you'd go, like, you know, I've got everything. I don't need this. So that's where I've always I've tried to like make a participation prize for everyone, and I tried to make that really awesome. So like this year at Nut Bowl, everyone's going to get one of these Squigmere mats with like the cheat sheets. It's a neoprene mat which you can use as a slam mat if you want to. I definitely use it as, and then it has everything you want. So kickoff table, press and knuckle table, injury table, pro chart, all that kind of stuff on it.
Sounds good, and I respect the hustle of advertising your own tournament and your own giveaway. Well done. Well snuck in.
But then the actual like prizes aren't as big because of that. Because I put so much of the budget into the participation prizes. The last couple of years as well, I've done, as you've probably seen, giant squirrel models, because I have a thing with Acorn and wanted a squirrel team and got someone to, I paid someone to design the model. I paid for them printed out, and everyone got one for turning up. And I think that's, I'd rather everyone got something than a couple of people who probably have everything already, or have most things, get more, or get a team they don't want. You know, the last time I won a team, I already had 2 of them, and so I just gave it to one of the local guys. Or, you know.
Well, same. And as a non-painter, the last time I won a team, it was in the Pairs event in Brighton, and I gave it to my partner because I'm never going to paint that. It's just going to sit in a cupboard just gathering dust. So not useful to me. I do quite like prize tables where there's a range of things, and perhaps the person who comes first gets to pick first, so they can decide what might be of use to them or might add to their collection. But I kind of think if you've won a prize, you don't need it to be a huge reward. The prize is having won the prize. The prize is someone taking your picture and saying, here you are. A little something that says you can put on your shelf if that appeals to you. I think lots of people do like that, but I don't think it has to be a big valuable thing that you've spent loads of money on, unless you're going to pay Blackhawk down to make you a lovely dice trophy, in which case it absolutely should remain that, because they're absolutely beautiful, and even my partner likes them. I guess there's nothing much I want to say. I think we kind of all agree that whilst there are problems with the prize systems, and while certainly a TO and a rules pack should make 100% clear if they're using Share the Wealth or, it's called other things in other countries, but if we're trying to make sure that as many people get prizes as possible, that I think needs to be 100% clear, because, poor Sol, I can understand how, having not seen it in the rules pack, he felt, I'm about to win this thing, and then suddenly it wasn't his name called out. I think we can all empathise with how that must have felt and why that was a tough moment for him. And I think that is on the TOs. So, there's 3 guys here that I think that's a responsibility and a burden you bear, and obviously the great wealth, riches, and adulation and fame you get from the community for doing it is the compensation for that. So, from my point of view, thank you very much for the risks you do take and for putting yourselves out there. But I'm sure you are aware there's an emotional impact on getting this stuff right or wrong, and being really clear about what's going on and what people are up for and not. But I still, in my heart, can't see a problem with sharing the wealth, with giving as many people prizes as possible, with making as many people that have put their time, their money and their effort into Blood Bowl feeling rewarded for that time. I still ultimately think that's a good thing. Does it mean there is sometimes some problematic play encouraged? Sure. I think we've heard those stories tonight. We've had some great ideas, like, if it's a longer tournament, instead of all 6 of your games counting for your strength of schedule, perhaps the bottom one could be cut. If you want to make it super competitive, that might be a way of doing that. I do like the idea of a wooden spoon going to maybe the person that wins that final game, or I don't really care if it goes to the person that loses, though. I think the idea that down the bottom end of the tournament there might still be something to win is great. If someone is repeatedly turning up only wanting the wooden spoon and obviously competing for it, then that might be an issue where some local tournament organisers need to get together and say, look, really, you're good enough at Blood Bowl now that we really don't think this is great for the community. But on the other hand, I'm just not sure I care super much. I just want people to be happy playing their Blood Bowl in whatever way they want to play Blood Bowl. People think of One World, One Blood Bowl as, the try-hard podcast, and maybe it can be at times, but I hope at its core, the values we've always espoused on this show, and the people I've had on almost always have, is that Blood Bowl's for all of us, and however that makes you happy, however that floats your boat, whatever gets you out playing Blood Bowl, I think is a great thing. And I don't ever want to turn around to someone and say, I think the way you're playing Blood Bowl is wrong. It may be suboptimal to win, it may not be the most competitive way of playing, but to just say it is wrong, it is not necessarily how I think of Blood Bowl. If it's making them happy, if it's making them play the game I love, if it's making them turn up somewhere and sit down alongside me and put their money into the system that keeps all of that going, then I say good luck to them and good luck to us all. So there we are. We've solved it. It turns out it's all fine.
I said the caveat, unless you're playing a Skitter Snotlings, then you can get in the bin.
Yeah, absolutely. Then you don't deserve to live. I may have done that once and won a tournament doing it. So now I've done it. It should stop.
That is on the TO though, ultimately.
Yes.
Well, so much of it is. So yeah, all the pressure on you guys. Make tournaments better and stop bad things.
That's why
as of now.
That's why I've traditionally used the Eurobowl rules and not had to think about them. Although in 2028, the home nations will have a rule set that I'll have written. So
then it will all be your fault. All year we can blame you for everything wrong in Blood Bowl, officially.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be that toxic dude in 2028.
Just be prepared. David will send you about 10,000 messages once that first.
He's also going to declare that he's not coming to Glasgow either, at least twice.
might
then
be
come.
might be a time to take 6 months off social media for a while, Jock. When you release that rule pack, just have a little break. Spend some time with your lovely
Just
missus.
little mic drop and just leave, you know.
Okay, look, I think that's wrapped up everything we need to. So, as you know, I'm going to ask you to wave because it finds me an easy point to find in the edit. Anyone have any other point they want to make before we wrap up? 3 big no's. Okay, super. I mean, I'm taking it when a Jock doesn't move and isn't drinking that's a no. He didn't say anything, but that's my first Scottish joke of the night. And I missed the obvious one of asking you first about wooden spoon because, of course, it's mostly Scots that win that.
One last thing, so my wife will kill
hang
me
on
if I
a
don't
minute.
say this. She likes to say PC. She says you sound extremely eloquent for a Blood Bowl player.
Oh, well, bless her. Tell her that Blood Bowl player is only one part of my multifaceted personality. I am, of course, as lots of people know, a trained actor, voiceover artist, communicator, and good dancer. So if she has any free time, and I'm in your area, I'll drop her a
You're not
line.
coming to that bowl free now.
She won't be
just
the only
about
one
that
thinking of me tonight.
But on that wooden spoon dig, I have to say it's not Scotland that needs to be getting out of the basement. It's Ireland. So bring it on.
The very best of luck
in a
to them.
fortnight's time.
Looking at those rosters for the home nations, it's kind of terrifying what the barbarians have put ourselves in for. But maybe that's another story for another day. Yeah. Anyway, that was One World, One Blood Bowl 75. Do prizes hurt Blood Bowl? I think we all think no, even if there are some issues around it. That's all we've got to say tonight. So thank you very much for all of that. We'll see you real soon. I've got another couple of episodes already planned and on the way. I love it when people wave. It's so fun. Right, thank you very much, guys.